Hello again, this is Everard Junction and this is another layout update. Now for a change I've come back over to the TMD side of the layout to do some more work. I've neglected this side of the layout for quite a while. There was a lot of bits and pieces I didn't do and hadn't started and hadn't finished. So I've got cracking and I've actually managed to complete quite a bit of work. Okay, so the first and most obvious thing is the retaining wall at the back. That's been all repaired and is now returned back where it should be. And I've also added some lights into the TMD area. These are the kites lights. I think they're just sort of ordinary street lights, but they look quite good. I'm going to be painting these. They won't stay white, and they're working as well. They look really good at night. I've done a little bit of weathering in the TMD area, so you can see where the concrete is. There's a bit of weathering there. I've touched up some of the weathering over on this side and just tidied things up a little bit, just made things a little neater. I've tidied up in the corner as well, and I've started laying down some of the cardboard and sort of prefab bits for the scenery that's going to go across the back here. There's going to be some sort of industry of some sort of large warehouse or something. I'm still playing with ideas at the moment. I've also added a fence. This is the Bachmann Scenecraft security fence that runs along the edge of the branch line. It's not painted yet, but for now it looks quite good. I've added a small works office over in the corner. This is part of the Hornby Scaledale range, and I think it is actually just called a works office. It's quite a nice little building. It's quite small and it sort of fills the corner quite nicely. I wasn't really sure what I was going to put over there. I initially did some sort of scrub land and tried to make it look a bit overgrown, but it didn't really fit in with the urban sort of built up feel that I'm trying to keep over this side. Various bits of ballast have been tidied up or relaid over here. There were little bits and pieces that had chipped off, which had mucked up some of the weathering. There were various bits where I'd taken the retaining wall out to repair it that needed to be re-added. So I've reballasted in a few sections and I've re-weathered the track. I've added some cable trunking as well as some of the Pico dummy point motors, as well as the orange cabling that runs underneath the rails. I might touch up the orange on that one a little bit. It's dulled down a bit since the weathering. There's another one over here as well with a dummy point motor. I picked up some graffiti from Hatton's. It's just transfers. It looks really good. I wasn't sure about applying graffiti and going down the graffiti route. I thought about doing some sort of freehand stuff and my own sort of thing, which I will be doing. But I've also decided to get these decals. And they look really convincing. They look really nice. And it just sort of livens things up a little bit. I haven't gone too mad. I haven't done loads of graffiti, but I've done a few bits and pieces just to sort of improve things a little bit. As you can see, the level of graffiti increases as we get towards the town. The idea is that people would be hanging off the bridge and jumping down to the track level, and they would be graffitiing the first bit of wall they could get their hands on, rather than traipsing all the way down the line to graffiti elsewhere. So I've tried to build it up near the town. There's another bit just inside this tunnel for the TMD. There's a little bit of a gap in the brickwork up there that I need to tidy up. I've also added a few bits of accessories and stuff, so sort of things like relay boxes and bins and pallets, and there's a bit of scrap over here. We've got some spare rail, the fan grille and the doors from a scrapped Class 50. There's an old wheel and a few sleepers, just to sort of add a bit of interest. I'm going to be painting that up a little bit as well. It's just sort of loose at the moment. Something else I've been working quite hard on over the last 2-3 days is the cars for Everard Junction. I have quite a few cars already, but a lot of them are they were sort of default kind of colours. You know, there was a bright red car, a bright blue car, a green car and a white car, and it didn't matter how many cars I had, there were just lots of cars that were the same sort of colours. So some of these I've completely stripped down and repainted from the ground up. Others have just been weathered and dulled down from their quite sort of striking finish, and others have just sort of been left as they are. I've tried to sort of represent vehicles in different conditions. Newer cars are generally quite clean, whereas the older cars are sort of more weathered, more sort of used look to them, and I think it's come out really well. So I'll just show you a couple of those. So if we start over in the corner, this is an Oxford die-cast VW Transporter. This particular version of the VW Transporter dates from about 1985, so it would have been a few years old at the time of the layout. So I've just sort of given it a wash with black paint and rubbed off most of it, just to give it a sort of used look. I've also added a driver, as you can see, just through the window there, as well as tidying up the window rubbers and just making it look a little bit more convincing. Other than that, it's the standard model and it's the standard colour. If we move along, this is a Corgi Ford Transit, Mark I Ford Transit. These were built in the 70s, so at the time of the layout this van could have been quite a few years old. So it's been made to look quite sort of beaten up and dirty, as well as adding a driver into it. I think it came out quite well. The grille's quite sort of grimy looking at the front. That van was completely repainted. It was originally in quite a garish circus livery, so I stripped the white paint off it and the decals, and I painted it in a light Ford blue that quite a lot of Fords from this period tended to carry. There's a couple of cars here, Reliant Scimitar and a Jaguar XJS. They're left fairly standard, although the Scimitar has been given a coat of matte varnish, as it would have been quite old at the time of the layout. This little Mark I Golf was originally a Golf GTI. I've stripped it all back, painted it silver, and just not bothered to paint on any of the GTI emblems or the red stripe around the grille. So it looks like a fairly standard Golf. This VW Transporter Minibus has just been made to look a little bit grimy. The police car is fairly pristine. This Morris Marina would have been a few years old, maybe 10 years old by the time the layout was in existence, and it's quite a rubbish colour as well. So I've just made it look a little bit dull. It's been given a coat of matte varnish, and I've just made the shut lines a little bit more better defined. Just made it look a bit used and grimy. Jag's basically the same. That Capri was originally red, so I've painted it a darker blue. Just made it look a little bit tatty. This Transit again is the same thing as the Transit further up. It was originally in the circus livery. I've stripped all the paint off it, painted it white and made it look nice and dirty. This Capri is fairly similar, it hasn't really been touched. These two Fords have been completely stripped down and repainted. They were originally the XR3i that were made by Oxford Diecast, and they were in fairly bright colours. So what I've done is I've taken off the plastic spoiler at the back and filled in the holes. I've redone the window rubbers, and I've painted both cars in different colours. So this is a nasty gold that would have been quite popular at the time, and this is a lighter blue that quite a lot of sort of lower spec Fords were sold in. And they both look really good. They look a bit more normal. It looked a bit silly having lots of people driving around in XR3i's when most people would have just had ordinary Escorts. Although they do have the optional sunroof fitted. Here's another grimy VW Transporter, same sort of thing as the other one. Most of the cars as we go along you'll see have got drivers fitted, some aren't because they're supposed to be parked cars. This Capri's just been made to look a bit tatty and tired. Other than that, it's fairly complete. This Cortina would have been pretty old by the time the layout was in existence, and as you can see I've repainted it into quite a beaten up example. This one was originally in a sort of peachy colour, metallic peach, which didn't look too good. So I've repainted it chocolate brown, added various marks on it where the paint has sort of peeled, the lacquer's come off and it started to rust in places. And I've also changed the colour of the front wing so it looks as though it's had an accident or this wing was too badly corroded and it's been replaced from another car. Again, the blue is roughly right. Many Cortinas were sold in that sort of blue. Here's a fairly tatty looking standard Golf. It's just been given a coat of matte varnish and it was repainted green. That's a Golf GTI standard Oxford diecast model. although on the Golfs I have reduced the size of the tyres. The Golfs do look a little bit like monster trucks when you get them out of the box. The tyres are a bit too big, so I've just reduced the size of those. Here's quite an old British Rail Escort van. It was unlikely that there would have been any of these surviving into the late 80s, being the type of Escort that it is. But it was a nice model and I've had it for a while, so I've made it look a little bit beaten up. I might add some rust around the wheel arches and along the bottom of the door, but for now I'm quite happy with it. Again, it's been fitted with a driver. This Morris Marina is the same as the last one you've just seen, although this one's red. I've given it a coat of matte varnish and just gone over it with a black wash and made it look a bit used and tired and a little bit uncared for, but it's fairly sound. It's not got any rust on it. This is quite a nice little Volkswagen Transporter camper van, or Westphalia. It would have been reasonably new, so I've just made it look a little bit dull, a little bit dirty, but other than that, standard model. I've also fitted a driver. Here's just a nice standard XR3i, standard Oxford die-cast model. I've fitted a driver and done a little bit of work on the window rubbers. Other than that, left it nice and shiny and clean. It's owned by somebody who clearly cares about it. Same thing for this Jaguar XJS, and this XR3i police car is in pretty good nick as well. So that's where I am with all the cars. I've tried to vary some of the colours, so the general spread of cars looks a little bit more different. They're not just all the same shade of red, the same shade of blue and the same shade of green. There's some golds and some silvers and some browns and some creams, some different colours just to sort of liven things up a little bit. I think it's come out quite well, although it's taken ages. The Oxford die-cast vehicles are quite easy to take apart if you fancy having a go at this yourself, especially if you've never repainted anything before. It's far easier to learn how to repaint a small Oxford die-cast model rather than try and repaint a £70 locomotive. Most of these little models are only about £3 to £4 each, so it doesn't matter if you muck it up. The newer models made by Oxford die-cast are screwed together, so you can take those two screws out and the chassis will come out complete with interior and windows, and you can then take the body shell away, which is made of die-cast metal, and you can strip it back and repaint the whole car if you wish. The older cars made by Oxford are actually riveted together. You see the little rivets in the end there. You just have to drill those out, and again the whole car comes apart nice and easily, so they're all fairly easy to dismantle and customise to your own liking. I will be adding some grime and some weathering to the trucks and buses on the layout as well. I've just finished doing all the cars, so I need to do those so they sort of blend in. There's a lot more detail to add to this town scene, such as pedestrians, lampposts, bins, all sorts of stuff, so I'll be getting that done in the next few months, as well as adding additional detail down here. I've still got the speed limit signs, signals, walkways and other bits and pieces to put in, so look out for that in the next few months. So I'll just give you a few shots of trains passing, and I'll leave you with that, and I'll be back soon with another video.